Hey guys, welcome to Tall Tales with Taco Bell. My name is Mitch. Everyone calls me Taco for obvious reasons. And tonight I'm really honored to have one of my oldest friends on the show, Rich Lowry, who is just internationally acclaimed, one of the conservative voices of our times. And the fact that I grew up with this guy and I know him just makes it even better. And without further ado, Rich, I'd like to bring you on. How are you, brother?
Good. How are you? Thanks for
I am
having me.
Dude, it's been a long time coming. I mean, I know when I'd go through New York City, we'd get together and have steak or do something, but this this is cool, especially right now after the election. Did you see this coming?
I have to say, most things I don't see coming, but
Yeah,
I saw a version of this coming just all year long. I thought Trump was going to win. I had a little doubt at the end just because the polls were close, but I still, if I had to guess, I thought he'd win. In fact, I predicted he'd win and predicted he'd win Pennsylvania. I didn't give him Michigan in Wisconsin, so I fell a little short. But it's
yeah,
still a stunning victory. Winning the popular vote, gaining everywhere around the country, including in urban areas. The gains made among Hispanics, among young people. So it's an extraordinary achievement, and so far he has a pretty good head of steam going into the new administration.
yeah. I was just reviewing your columns, and you were talking about, you know, the last time in 2016 he started out with all of the Russia,
Mm-hmm.
Russia, Russia, and all the investigations and everything, the immediate impeachment trials and stuff that they want to do to the guy. And now he actually has a little wind to his back, and it's not going to be smooth sailing by any stretch of the imagination. But I got to tell you, I mean, in 2016, if you had bet me that night who's going to win, I would have told you straight up Hillary.
Mm-hmm.
Hillary's going to win the election, no problem. And it's funny because Teresa had gone to bed early that night. She was exhausted. We were both exhausted. But I stayed up and I had on my iPad, I had CNN, I had Fox, I had Politico, Young Turks. I was looking through everybody's stuff. And by about 10 o'clock, I go in there and I wake Teresa up and I go, "Holy crap, you're not going to believe this. I think Trump's got a chance to win." And I got on my knees. I'm like, "Dear God, please, please allow Donald Trump to win the election." And sure enough, he wins. But in 2020, I would have thought it's easy. He's going to win when you look at all of the people that went to all of his rallies, and then you looked at the movie theater, outdoor movie theater, and the
Oh yeah,
20
the
cars put
drive-in.
up for
Yeah, people
Biden.
honking and flashing their lights for applause. Yeah, great,
Yeah,
great moment in American politics, Mitch.
but here's my question to you: that as the average layman, I look back and everyone said Trump, the election wasn't stolen from him in 2020. Just admit it, it wasn't stolen. But then when you look at the numbers and you go, wait a minute, in 2020, Biden got 81 million votes. Trump got 74 million. But when you look all the way back in 2008, Obama got 69, McCain 59. And you go 2008, that was the first black president. Everybody came out to vote for him. So if he got 69 million votes in 2008, he only got 65 in 2012. In 16, Trump got 62 million, Hillary got 65. And in 2020, Trump got 74 and Biden got 81 million. Where'd the 81 million go? Where's the extra 20 million votes? Where'd they come
Yeah,
from?
so I never had. I always thought in that one, as I said, my predictions oftentimes don't pan out. But there was the only national poll, where Trump was ever leading in that race was Rasmussen. So it
Mhm.
seemed pretty clear that Biden had a pretty good chance of winning. It was just a high turnout election, and yeah, every lever they could pull to make it easier for people to vote, mail ballots out to people, all that they used. Obviously, the media was biased, social media was biased. The Hunter
Oh, yeah.
Biden laptop thing was a travesty, but Trump wasn't popular going in. He got slammed by the pandemic. If the election had happened in 19, he would have won, but it happened in 20, and Biden won by default. Obviously, as I said in a column not too long ago, Joe Biden won the presidency when he was already a has-been. I don't think that's ever happened in American history. He was already too old when he
Yeah.
won the first time around, and it's been a steady decline since then. And when he was still running, prior to that first debate, we were asked by the Democratic Party to believe one of the most preposterous things the American public has ever been asked to credit, and that's the idea that that man could have served another 4.5 years in the White House. He could have been in there until January 2029. It was crazy. And if they didn't have that first debate, and there's at least one friend of mine, Steve Moore, who said Trump never should have done that debate. Don't do the debate until October 15th or something when it's too late to pull him out. But if it hadn't been for that debate, they'd still be telling us Joe Biden is hale and hearty and we're making it up. I mean, we saw him wander off on camera, like for everyone to see, right? You didn't have to come up with any theory. You saw it. And they didn't. They thought we were making it up and we were crazy. So it hurt Trump though to lose, and I think he's better this campaign in some important respects because he wanted that vindication, getting back, and he did. It's an amazing personal achievement.
He did, but when you look at the God points in life, right? There is a reason he did not win. There is an absolute reason in place that allowed 4 years of the worst this country has ever seen to go off. And when everybody's able to sit back and look and go, well, we had four years of weaponization against Trump and all the crap that he had to put up with. And then we had 4 years of just really horrible policies. What do you want? What do you have to do? You don't have to prove Trump. He already did it. Just bring him back.
Yeah, that was a huge factor in his favor. Retrospectively, his approval rating was much higher than when he left office. And it was clearly because of the contrast with Biden, one, and two, because people discounted the pandemic year, which they should. This is like a once in 100-year event. I don't think Trump really did anything wrong. I don't think anyone could have done a better job. It was just horrible circumstances, but he paid a price for that in 20. And, with the perspective of a couple of years, people thought about that differently. So again, that's why I thought Trump was going to win all year long. Biden's approval rating about 40%. Even if he's not on the ticket, that's a disaster for the incumbent party. And Trump more popular than he'd been in a very long time, or in some polls ever. So you add that up, and it pretty clearly pointed to a favorable result for the former president.
Yeah, but it's so funny though. You watch any social media or any mainstream news, Kamala had it. She had it in the bag, and it just shows how much influence social media and the liberal policies that are out there can influence your thought decision.
Yeah, they wanted to will it into being. And it seemed as though they're having some success with it at the outset, the first 4 or 5 weeks of the campaign. Also, Trump kind of seemed wrong-footed initially, or sort of surprised, which he shouldn't have been, because he told anyone who had listened for years, I don't think it's going to be Biden. Then they pull Biden, and he did seem a little shocked by it. But this whole faux joy they created around Kamala, and the idea that what's his name? I had trouble coming up with his name. Tim Walz. Remember him? He was going to have appeal to rural America. He doesn't even know how to load a shotgun, right? I might not know how to load a shotgun, Mitch, but I'm not going to pretend like I know. I'm going to ask you how to do it. Anything having to do with armor or firearms, I go to you first. I know, I'm a creature of urban America. But this was Waltz was this total doofus, and the idea was it was kind of an urban person's idea of someone who would appeal to rural America, and of course that didn't work. So they sustained that for several weeks or a month or so. When the real joyful Trump candidate was Trump. He says harsh and insulting things all the time, but he enjoys doing that, and he's willing to make fun of himself and have some fun. Whether it was the McDonald's thing, which was brilliant, or the garbage truck thing, which was great, or the YMCA dance, which I hesitate to call a dance. I mean, if I can do it, Mitch, it's probably not really a dance, right?
Yeah. But it's an older guy that doesn't.
Yeah, it looks a little ridiculous, and that was the charm of it. And that's the thing. Trump, although they tried to make him out like Hitler, there's something charming and likable about him, something certainly irrepressible about him. And that wasn't true about her. She was manufactured from start to finish.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing, because like I said, the stars align, right? Had he won in 2020, he wouldn't have had the House or the Senate. And so how everything worked now, he's got everything. And he's a lame duck. So if he can go in there and actually get the stuff done that he promised, he could change this country's course of direction. I mean, I'm just a lay guy. I'm a average Joe out in middle America in Texas going, this is wrong. I mean, even I can see this is wrong. When my company tells me, hey, you have to take this shot because we are a contractor for the U.S. government, as in we do craft flights around the world. We fly military. So because of that, the government's requiring all contractors to have the COVID shot. I'm like, I've had every shot that the government forced me to have while I was on active duty. And a couple of them I really didn't want to do because they did have issues. I didn't want to get the COVID shot, but I sat down with Teresa and said, it's either the loss of the job and the income, and I can't get a job out in the ISR sector flying stuff because they're contractors. So what do? I mean, I actually thought about getting my dad's card, COVID card, and submitting that documentation. But then I thought, well, if they catch me, then I'm fired. But I took the J&J, which was the least offensive. But I looked at the family and I said, you guys will not get this shot. If anything happens, I'll take it. You guys are good. And then Susan, she wanted to get, because everybody in college was getting it. And I go, do not get it. You don't know the effects that it could have on you later on. And now that stuff is actually starting to come to fruition. And, you're looking at the death rates of young, able-bodied boys, that are having heart problems, and girls. So, this stuff, we don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 years, but pray to God, Kennedy in there, maybe there would be some stuff and some people held accountable.
It never should have been mandated. I think for people who are overweight or elderly or had underlying health conditions, it made sense. I think it saved lives. But the idea that able-bodied people were being forced to take it or make the choice, you don't want to take it, Mitch, that should have been fine. But you're forced to choose between your livelihood and whether you're going to take it. That was ridiculous. And probably the most preposterous thing was all the athletes, like NFL players in the prime of their careers, like 25-year-old guys who are in the best shape of anyone in America, were forced to take the shot, right? If there's anyone besides kids who doesn't need the shot, it's them, right? And there was a tennis player we wouldn't let come. There was a Nets player who couldn't play in New York, couldn't play home games because he wouldn't take the shot. It was a real hysteria.
Or giving it to babies. A brand new baby. You're going to give baby a COVID shot? Some mRNA spike deal? God.
Yeah.
Dang.
So, and all this perversity of it was done in the name of science. So if you look at the issue of masking, especially masking kids in school, no one else in the advanced world, or at least a lot of other European countries, no one did it the way we did. And it was all based on studies like if you get an N95 mask and it fits you perfectly and you've been trained how to put it on and you change it every hour and a half, it will protect you, right, to some extent. But no kid was doing that, right? They're putting on these Spider-Man masks that have mucus and, are ill-fitting. So it was a superstition perpetrated by people who pretend to be experts in the science. You'd see people who surely they listen to NPR and they think they're following the science, jogging in masks, right? There's no threat whatsoever outside. You don't need a mask outside, but they thought they were following the science.
Well, you know what the deal is, man. Why, you see somebody, why somebody wears a mask in the car by themselves? It prevents them from licking the windows when they're at a stoplight. I mean, it literally, it's crazy. And I want to go back.
I saw a girl on the streets in New York not too long ago. She was wearing a mask outside. And I was like, who are you? I wonder who you are. I'd like to kind of talk to you, find out more about it, why you're doing this. And then I noticed she had a cat carrier with a cat in it. And then like halfway down the block, she made a left and went into the vegan restaurant. It's like, no, actually, I know exactly who you are.
Yeah. And the ones that wear the mask, what I love is pulled down. So it's just covering their mouth, not their nose. And then they're touching everything and they're doing. So if you're wearing a mask in this day, it's 2024. I'm sorry, that may be your preference, but you're mental. And, I want to go back. You don't put up with bull crap, and you don't at all. I love how you will cut through and slice like a knife. And my famous thing with you was in 1996. I bought this house in Lee Summit. I came back from Japan after a year over there, and I bought a house in Lee Summit, Missouri. And I'm coming home from the bars one night, and I flipped the TV on, And there is Rich Lowry, my childhood friend, on some panel talking about stuff. And I don't remember what the hot topic was at the time, 96. I'd really have to go back. But the girl goes, even the French are laughing at us. And you looked at her and you go, I don't care what some cheese eating surrender monkeys think about America. and, and I called my mom and dad up and I woke them up and I go, you won't believe who's on TV, Rich Lowry. And my mom goes, yeah, son, he's on TV all the time. Good night, click. But
Yeah, I think we were talking about this before we started recording. I think that might have been my colleague Jonah Goldberg,
Jonah,
but I'll take credit for it. But by the way, you refer yourself to an average American. That's so ridiculous. One, there's no such thing as an average American. But two, you're a hero. You served your country. You went back when you didn't have to. You're a great pilot. You're fascinating. You have great interest. I love seeing the pictures of the armored vehicles you're always acquiring and rehabbing. So if there's any such thing as an average American, which again I doubt, it's certainly not you. Certainly,
I appreciate it, Rich. But yes, I'm just the average guy out there having fun. So if you're, not living life to the fullest, then you're in the wrong, man. Well, hey, now that New York City is. I saw the verdict on Daniel Penny, and of course, as a Marine, I'm like, I got to send money to this guy's defense.
Yeah.
This guy definitely needs backup, and I figured honestly, kind of like the election in 2016, I thought that guy was a goner.
Yeah, this was terrible. This is the rare person in New York who does the right thing, sticks their neck out. Usually someone threatening comes on a subway car. Everyone looks at their shoes. They hope they don't make eye contact. They don't look at anyone, and they try to get off the train. They hope the train will get to the next station in time for them to get off, and everything will be fine. It's very rare for someone to step up, and that he thank God he was acquitted, but that he lived a couple of years of a nightmare over this, right? And and if he had been a crazy guy who had punched someone on a subway platform, he would have walked free. It's because he was a white guy and fit their racial narrative, that he was made out as a vigilante, like he's this crazed person wandering the streets hoping to run into a situation like this. He didn't want that to happen. He didn't want Jordan Neely to die. He was just trying to restrain him until the authorities got there. And the sad thing is, right, this is why gun ownership is important, is you're in a situation, the cops will get there, certainly in New York, maybe in 7 minutes, 7 minutes. A lot can happen in 7 minutes. So we had the testimony of some of those passengers. They were scared. They were grateful. There were minority passengers who helped them restrain Neely. And by the way, Jordan Neely never should have been in that situation either. He is a schizophrenic man who should have been compelled to get treatment and shouldn't have been allowed to just wander the streets. That's a profoundly inhumane policy. That's horrible for New York. It's horrible for the mentally ill people. And it's horrible for everyone who has to be around them. That wasn't Daniel Penny's fault. None of it was his fault. He was acting in good faith.
I could tell you as a Marine, I guarantee you soldiers out there, Marines, sailors, anybody that served. I mean, look at the kids that were on the train in France and they disarmed that guy. Just servicemen on leave. If you see something, it's in your nature. You run towards gunfire, you do stuff, you run towards something happening. He's not going to back down. And I'm not, I mean, if I was on that subway, I probably
I was going to say, you would be an exception. But most New Yorkers haven't served in the military, right?
Yeah.
But you don't want to discourage the potential Daniel Pennies out there, right? There aren't cops on every subway car. There aren't police there to stop crimes from happening. So you need people who are public spirited and big and strong and capable enough to protect others. And he never should have been in that courtroom.
No, he shouldn't have, especially since there was another guy I read, New York Post. He stabbed somebody, killed him, and he had zero bail, zero charges brought against him. It's disheartening to see what's happened throughout the country. I mean, I, as a pilot, like to fly to New York City, but walking downtown New York City I can't carry my gun, but I do have a little form of protection that I take with me, and it's a padlock about that big. You can put a bandana through it and stick it in your back pocket, and if somebody comes up with a knife, tries to hold you up, you can at least whack the wrist and you know, maybe inflict a little punishment instantly. But
Yeah,
you
I don't
know,
recommend anyone trying to
no,
rob you on
I
the
don't
streets of New York.
recommend you do that either. But I'm just telling you, I don't like feeling defenseless.
Yeah, of
And I used
course.
to enjoy flying to Portland and Seattle until my FO and I walked out of the hotel in Portland, and we were going down the street to this local place that we would go visit. And as we came out, three homeless guys attacked us as we were crossing the street. Um, let's just say that we were okay and we got away from those guys, but very dangerous. Seattle, I used to love going down, right down to the water down there, the waterfront, and there's a great place to have breakfast in there. But you're literally walking by
Yeah,
zombies and people on
yeah,
drugs and
yeah.
the homelessness. It's to allow that to happen. If I was Trump or Kennedy and I want the health of America to improve, mental health has to improve when you look
Hmm.
at the number of shooters and people that are out there, but they already are diagnosed. They know that they're crazy. They know they need help. We need to bring sanatoriums back. I hate to say we're going to have to bring something back to be able to put those people in there because they don't belong on the streets. Clean the streets
Totally
up,
agree.
get those
Totally
people
agree.
taken care of, and get them the help that they need and the drugs that they need or whatever they need. But, take that. One other thing I wanted to hit you on. Pete coming in as Secretary of Defense. What would you think if I was Secretary of Defense? I would bring General Milley back on active duty because you can do that. They can bring anybody back on if you've served or whatever and bring you back on active duty orders. And then I'd probably bring him up on treason charges for no people forget what that guy did when Trump lost and he called his counterpart up in China and said, "Hey, listen, if Trump does anything crazy, I'll call you up and let you know." That that's treason to me. I'm sorry, you can't do that. Um, and then that Alexander Vindman, uh, that guy, I would love to bring him back on and bring him up on charges of sedition, and then find out, say, okay, work with him and get him to roll over on who got him to do that, who got him to make up that stuff and leak the calls and try to get Trump on those Ukrainian phone calls. What do you think about that? Would
Well,
that be a
I
possibility?
think no. I think if Pete gets through, it's going to be forward looking. I think he probably will get through now. Last week, I thought it was probably a better than 50% chance he would go down. But I think his
Yeah.
defense of himself last week, it caught Trump's attention and Trump liked it. And it really created a lot of pressure on Joni Ernst. In this environment, you don't want to be the one Republican who might vote down a Trump nominee. There's sort of safety in numbers, like behind the scenes. You say, we're not into Matt Gaetz, and there are 6 to 8 of us, and it's never going to happen. Well, then Matt Gaetz
Right.
goes. It seems like maybe that would happen with Hexeth, but it seems unlikely now. And I think it's 67% chance probably it gets confirmed. And you tell me that, it's a little bit of a leap in the dark for me that he'll be, be effective running the Pentagon, but the place is inert. The place needs a shakeup. And you know much more about this than I do. It seems like a lot of rank and file guys will be, thank God, right? Here's someone who's
Yeah.
anti-DEI, who
Yeah.
wants us to be a war-fighting machine over everything else, the way we were intended, has got some tattoos, has walked the walk, not just talk the talk, and didn't have to go back to Afghanistan, and he did,
Yeah.
and has 2 Bronze Stars and served honorably and very commendably. That might help with the recruitment issue. What do you think that will have a
Oh,
transformative
huge.
effect there?
I spent 9 years total out of
Yeah,
29 doing recruiting duty, and watching the shift going through, especially during COVID. The Marine Corps kicked out 8,000 total service members were kicked out of the military. 4,000 of those guys were Marines. And what people didn't realize, young, Lance Corporal or whoever refused to get the shot. They gave them this specific code in their discharge that was general discharge under honorable conditions. But the code that they gave them was akin to serious misconduct, which would be like rape, murder, death, something, right? So when you go to get a job, you're just happy to be out of this chicken shit organization that was trying to force you to do this stupid stuff. And you go to get a job and apply somewhere, your resume gets automatically flagged by HR because it knows what that code is. And they don't have an opportunity to even get in front of somebody to say, hey, this is what I left the service over, was refusing to take the jab.
Mm-hmm.
Not, I didn't kill anybody, but they don't have that chance. So the Defense Department, Pete, if you talk to them, they need to go back and reverse every single one of those codes that they
Mm-hmm.
gave,
Mm-hmm.
especially the Marines. I know that they offered them jobs back into the Corps, but most of them are just at this point. I'm not going to do that. The DEI
Mm-hmm.
thing, I interviewed Matt Lohmeyer probably 2 years ago. He wrote a book about it. He was a Space Force guy, and he got kicked out over DEI. And that the stuff that we're not a social experiment. And I know
Mm-hmm.
people get mad at me for saying this. If you want to be trans, that's great. Do it on your own time, your own dime. But don't expect everybody else to kowtow to your views. And the military is not a place to be a social experiment for, you know, this thing. It's just not. And it's not that I'm not progressive enough. It's just, it isn't. It doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, you know much more about this than I do, but it seems to me guys aren't signing up to get lectured about social justice. If they want to do that, they can go to Oberlin College or any college in
yeah,
America, right? They're signing up to serve the country, to challenge themselves, and have an adventure. And that's an important part of it. I remember I just went to Iraq a couple times on reporting trips. And we went once after the surge. I forget where we were. It was somewhere north of Baghdad, an area, 4 months ago had been a nightmare. And then it was totally pacified. I remember being this Bradley fighting vehicles with these 21-year-olds. And we were asking, so it must be great for you guys now. It's pacified and safe. And they're like, it sucks. It's boring. Right. So that's a military mindset that civilians can't grasp,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
That's why these guys are so valuable. They're different and distinctive in a really important way. So if you go to an institution that the only risk is that you say the wrong thing, right, or you don't go to your training or whatever, no
yeah.
one's going to be into that.
Yeah, it got to the point that if you have to do one more sexual assault PowerPoint all day lecture, gay rights, trans parade, Pride Month, or whatever. It gets frustrating. You need to be concentrating on beans, bullets, and bad guys.
Mm-hmm.
But if I remember right, we were talking about this. I was in Alticatum. I thought you went west out there in the Anbar province, where it really calmed down when you were
Yeah,
out there.
so I did, I think, 2 trips, and I think we were out in Anbar both times. There's one when it was brief. I went there with Victor Davis Hanson actually, and it was
Wow.
in Baghdad and Anbar, maybe another place or two, but it was just a couple of days. And there was another one uh, where we're out there for a week, actually traveling with H.R. McMaster. He was just kind of doing a survey of what
Yeah.
tribal leaders were thinking, and then we went all over. I forget where this Bradley fighting vehicle experience was. Bradley fighting vehicle is a weird thing, right? You can't
Yeah.
see anything. You're just looking at screens.
Right.
So it's very very unusual vehicle. But
Yeah, it's kind of
do
cool.
guys like it?
We don't use Bradleys. That's the Army. So
Okay.
I don't know. I never got to travel in it. Anything I was in a Hummer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I got to say that I liked Afghanistan a lot better than I liked Iraq. Afghanistan was beautiful.
Oh,
Flew
it's
all
an
over the country. Yeah, we
amazing
did stuff
country.
over there that the average person, or they might be in their one little sector. But now I know for all the Army guys that listen to this, or the Marines that are up there getting shot down on, horrible place to be. The places I
Yeah.
went were Jalalabad and
Mm-hmm.
out west and Kunduz and
Yeah, I
Barnyard.
went to Afghanistan
Nice.
a couple times too, and it was like you, just struck by the beauty of the place. I mean, you be in a helicopter, and one second these dry brown mountains, and then it's
Yeah.
flat desert, and then it's lush green
Yeah.
landscapes. So an incredible country in that respect. But just Kabul was like, a high rise there is a shack.
Yeah.
It was amazing. It was like you looked at it and like, what? This is like a trailer park where there's been a tornado. In America, incredibly desolate place. But also a lot of street life, a lot of bustle and people hustling around.
Well, it's crazy, to think back 40 years ago, that place was premier.
Mm-hmm.
50 years ago, it was a premier place to go. And the women were modern,
Mm-hmm.
everybody. I mean, it was just a great place to visit. But if you read, is it James Michener? Is it Caravan? God, I have to go back. I'm having a mind fart. James Michener wrote a book that was set in the 40s, I believe, maybe late 40s. But what's funny is everything in that book was still there today. It's kind of like when you're flying over the mountains. You come over if you flew over from Manis base across the mountains. As soon as you hit Afghanistan, it's black, right? There's no electricity. There's
Yeah,
no
yeah,
roads. There's
right.
none of that. You go over the mountain and you go from 1492 to 2008. It's
Yeah, it's
kind of
amazing.
crazy.
I often, by the way, I tell people your story if I remember correctly when it comes up like food people don't like or meat is the topic. I'll say, oh, I had this buddy who was in Afghanistan. He was meeting with tribal leaders, and he went to lunch. And he saw this disgusting black thing hanging off a tree. And he's like, what is that? And he got a closer look, and it was this piece of meat which is like swarmed with flies.
Oh,
And then the host says, "Oh yeah, that's lunch," and you had to eat it because it would have been rude not to.
yeah, it literally was. It was the interpreter's like, "Oh, Colonel Bell," he's talking to the police chief. It wasn't a tribal leader; it was a police chief who was the head honcho, and he goes, "Oh, the chief has invited you and my German counterpart to have lunch," and I'm like, "Lunch?" And the lunch, their kitchen, field kitchen, was right next to the toilet, and the toilet was this big trailer that we'd given them, but they would stand on the toilet seats and they'd break them, and then they'd throw rocks after they wiped down into the toilet. We just had to cut the guts off the bottom and then dig a big slit trench. So at 5,000 feet elevation, the flies would jump in your mouth or in your eyes
Uh,
behind your glasses, and they're trying to
uh,
get moisture. And it was
uh,
driving me absolutely nuts because I'd watch some TV show about flies and the diseases and stuff. And then the guy goes, "Yeah, we're having lunch." And I look over and it's a black sheep carcass hanging there. And the guy, it's black. And I'm thinking, I haven't seen many black sheep around here. And the guy takes the thing and he whacks the meat, and all the flies go, and it's red. And then it goes, and it's black again. I'm like, oh my God, I am not eating here. And the guy's like, interpreter's like, tell the chief, thank you so much. We got to meet General Muhammad back in base camp and have lunch with him. And he was like, Lieutenant Colonel Bell, I cannot tell him that. And I'm like, no, go ahead, tell him. No, you don't cause a political incident. We cannot do that. And I'm like, all right, fine, we'll eat. Well, we ate. It was the best chow I've ever. I mean, the bread is to die for, and the watermelon and the fruits. The meat, they take little slices of fat and they stick it in between the meat and they cook it. Well, after we ate, we're in the Hummer. Actually, we were in these up armored pickup trucks, and we had two Army Hummers escorting us. And it's a 2 hour drive over what they call a road. It was more like a dirt path with two ruts in the road. We get about an hour in, and my partner goes, "Hey, we need to stop the vehicles." "For what?" He goes, "I have to go to the bathroom." And they're like, "We ain't stopping the vehicles. We're in Indian territory." And he goes, "You don't understand. If we don't stop the vehicles, I will explode in here." And then we have another, what, hour and a half drive? And they're like, "Okay,
oh
stop
no.
vehicles, mount up, stop the vehicles." So we literally stopped. He pops his
Oh,
door
no.
and releases his trousers and explodes. And he's like, okay, okay, and he gets back in. Uh, okay, okay, and then it was another 20 minutes. Got to stop.
Oh,
We
man.
stop again. By the time we got back that night, he was living in the bathroom, puking and
Uh,
diarrhea.
uh,
And then we got him on the helicopter to go back to Kabul, and in the flight, he had an accident. They stuck him in the back of the helicopter, so the air coming from the front through the hatches kind of blow the smell out the back. And then we put him in the back of a pickup truck because he soiled himself so bad. And we got him
it's
back to the
awful.
hospital. And I asked the cop, I go, or the doc, I said, Doc, I don't understand. I ate the same stuff he did. How come I'm not sick? And he goes, are you taking the daily doxycycline or are you taking the Monday malaria pill? Oh, I'm on the daily. He goes, good man. That's all spectrum antibiotic. You're good. He's on the Monday malaria pill. Well, trust me, man. Hans switched to the daily doxycycline after that. He was like,
Yeah. Well, I listen to, I'm interested in military history and I listen to a lot of podcasts that going through a phase of then listening to podcasts about various battles in the 100 Years' War. And it just, just that story, that poor guy, it brings home these sieges where the armies would be suffering from dysentery. Can you imagine? You could take the guy to a hospital. You could take a pill. Just and this is through most of human history, right? Most military casualties just disease, right?
yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, horrible. So thank God for modern medicine. I'll tell you that right now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I've kept you on for almost 40 minutes. Do you have to go or you got a couple more minutes?
I gotta go in a minute or two, unfortunately.
All right. Anything that you see, brother, out there that America could be doing better? What's your next forecast?
Oh, that America could be doing better. I mean,
Yeah.
there are plenty of things. Obviously, we talked a little bit about it in the military context, but DEI has been a poison throughout American life, especially on college campus. And I think it's really encouraging that it seems as though that the tide is receding somewhat. And I think the Trump administration is going to be very aggressive in trying to root this out and bleach this poison from the system. So that's one thing I'm optimistic about. I'm also pretty optimistic about the border. I think
Yeah.
I don't think Trump said, I'm going to have peace between Ukraine and Russia in 24 hours. That's not going to happen, at least not in 24 hours. But the border, as soon as he inaugurated it, it's going to dry up. No one's going to step foot across the border just because they're afraid. And that'll be true for like 2 or 3 months. It's kind of what happened in 16 when he took office too. And then he's got to reinstate these policies that were working prior to Biden tearing them up. And I think he'll be pretty successful there as well. Mexico does want to do and remain in Mexico, but with the tariff threat, they might do remain in Mexico. So I think that I'm pretty bullish on the border. And then, he said on Meet the Press last weekend, I think is right. People voted for him fundamentally. There are a lot of things that played into it on the border and on the economy and prices. And he's got to focus on both of those like a laser.
Yeah, I agree. Well, DEI, if we can get that out, I'm surprised. I was in Charlottesville and the white spot's still there. I'm
Oh yeah.
surprised they haven't called it the other spot or
Oh
something.
yeah. Did you get a Gus burger? Is that the white
Yeah,
spot?
got a Gus Burger fried egg. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love Charlottesville. Man, I miss that place.
Yeah, it's a
But
great time.
listen, brother, you have a great one. Give your
Thanks for
wife a
having
hug.
me.
Give the
God
kids a hug.
bless.
And when you guys come down here, let's see. I've got a picture of. So I sold the big one.
There you
I've sold the fox. I still have the ferret, which is there's a new movie coming out called Homestead, which is based off a book series I read years ago called Black Autumn or something. And the guys they were getting attacked and they found a ferret in one of the military museums in Utah
go.
and they grabbed it and that's what saved the day was the ferret. But now we're building all the Hummers up, right? So
Yeah.
I've got
Well, if anyone comes after us, comes after Texas, your garage will be one of the key military depots.
I'm telling you, man, a semi-automatic 50 cal on the top of a Hummer, even though it's semi-automatic, it's still a lot of firepower.
Yeah.
And there's Jake. Jake's got his Hummer, the gray one. Michael and Rick, and we've got about almost 12 Hummers now.
That's awesome.
So we're doing a lot. And then I always love this. We were having lunch up there in New York City. You and uh, I think I had Jake with me, and you were showing
Is
us
this pizza place?
Trump had retreated, tweeted one of your posts, and you were telling the story about calling the White House and actually got through to him.
Oh yeah. So it was very easy the first time around to call the White House switchboard between 7 and 9, when the president would just mostly be watching Fox News and take calls. So yeah. I tried that. I tried that one night. I didn't get directly through, but he did call me right back the next day.
That is so cool, man. I love it. I love it. Well, tell your gal that you work with. She called me about one of the events that you all had down here. So things have changed contract wise. So I would like to support that. So next time you come
Awesome.
back down,
Great.
let me know, and I'd like to help you out.
Awesome. Thanks so
All right,
much,
brother.
Mitch. God bless.
Hey,
Appreciate
God
it.
bless you. Merry
You're the
Christmas.
best.
And
Same
mom
to
and
you.
dad, I saw them today. They said to tell you hello, and they'll be looking forward to listening to us.
Awesome.
I mean,
Sounds great.
think about it. We grew up as 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, Kenilworth Street. You know who lived next door to you, right? Jack Downing. Do you remember the Downings? JG
I
and
do.
Wendy.
Yeah. Yeah.
He was number 3 man at CIA.
Okay. I knew he had a government role, but I never. They lived in Moscow for a while, didn't they?
Oh yeah, they did Moscow, Beijing, the whole 9 yards. But he was number 3 man at Spook Central there.
Mm.
And then we had FBI across the street. We had Karen Shacks up the street. We lived on a really good street. You know that? We did. All right,
Do you
brother.
remember,
Well,
by the
listen.
way,
Oh,
before we part here, I've been thinking about this. Do you remember that on the corner of the side of the street we were on, towards 18th Street,
uh-huh.
where I think that the head of Veterans Affairs lived for a while recently, that
Oh,
was there
Robert Wilkie.
a former when we were much younger, was there a former a bomber pilot in World War II? I have this vague memory of my parents saying something about that when I was very small.
You know, I don't remember. I know Robert Wilkie was up on the corner,
Yeah, it's that house.
that house, and no, I don't remember
Hmm.
that.
Okay.
Yeah, he might have died in the 70s when we were down in Little Creek,
Hmm.
and then
Yeah.
we came
Okay.
back in 78. Yeah. All right, brother. Well,
Okay.
listen, man, you have a
Thanks so
great
much,
one. Give
Mitch.
Vanessa
All
a
right.
hug.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
All right.
Christmas to you. See ya.
Bye bye.
Well, folks, I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks so much for joining on. I don't normally do political, and it's really kind of always interests me. And I watch Rich, and I'm going to leave a couple links on the show description so that you can check him out on X, and you can also see him on um, New York Post, and also if you go to National Review, I'll have a link for all of his editorial posts there. So if you want to read Rich, please join him and check him out. Subscribe, like, and we will see you guys next time. Until I see you next week, adios, hasta luego, sa wiedersehen, tschüss, shishini, au revoir, dominicatu gazanas, tando shide, kurasai, ciao, rividici, tashikor, assalamu alaikum, mahala, dovidzenia, das vidanya, and I'm going to go out with this one. Take care.